Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. I Heather Jean here. We are having coffee in the community today with one of our community members, Anna Empey from Washington, USA, very near my home. I'm so excited to meet you, Anna.
It's so great to meet you too, Heather Jean. Thank you so much for having me be here and letting me be in the community.
Well, I love it when people come into the community and they're just like, yes, I'm here. It's like, I'm happy to be here, and so as soon as you do, I was like, hey, you should come and have coffee with me and we'll have a chat and get to know you and get to know about what you do. And I feel quite strongly that, especially those of us in the community, and there's a lot of us that have full-time jobs in the community, but the ones who have a business, I really feel like by all means promote what you're doing, especially if you're promoting something that's about to start and you want to let everybody know about it. But come and have a coffee and let's talk about it so people get to know you instead of like spamming them with all the, the promo posts, because it starts to feel like a little bit of a flea market, or over here we have boot sales. It starts to feel like that, kind of like a bit spammy. And that's not where you and I started, but I just always encourage people to come and have a chat. And so tell us, Anna, tell us about what you do and everything, Anna.
Everything Anna. Well, let's start with I was born in, I'm kidding, but I will share a little bit about that. So I was born on a farm. It's more like an orchard, 2,000 acres of orchard in eastern Washington. So if you buy organic apples, no matter where you are in the world, there's a pretty good chance you've probably had an apple from my family. I'm the third generation of that. So I was born with a hard work and a mentality like my dad did teach me to work smarter, not harder, but hard work was something that I enjoyed and have enjoyed my whole life. So, when I started my business, I was like, oh man, like, okay, I'm going to have to find a way to work smarter, not harder. Because my go to is like, work harder, it'll be fine. We can muscle through it just because of how I was raised. Um, and I got my sales skills from the School of Hard Knocks, went to farmers market from age 7 until I was about 18, every Saturday from April to October. Um, and I loved it. I loved it. And I loved people there. And it's, the people that I met there. And there's Walla Walla is a big, huge tourist town, right? There's all these wine tours. So I met people from all around the world who would come to the wine tours and they'd say things like, Anna, I should hire you so that you could sell my used cars. And I would say things back like, if I don't believe in it, I can't sell it. And I believed in our fruit, obviously, because I picked it and grew it. And then I went to college and I studied anthropology, and I loved that. And that's the background that I come from, is how to understand other people. And I'm always curious about cultures and language and just how we are with each other as people. Um, at the end of the day, I ultimately care about people, which is why I ended up starting my business with my wife, actually. So we work together in our business, and sometimes that's a really good thing. And sometimes we have to take a break from each other. So it's the practice, right? Hmm.
Yeah, that's a really brave thing to do, to work together.
Yeah, and we had a lot of people who were like, "Don't do that, never do that. You're gonna ruin your marriage." And I'm like, actually, I feel like it's helped us grow closer. Um, we were first friends for many, many, many years before we ever fell in love, and then we worked separate individual jobs uh, while we were getting married, and then we started our business after we got married, and it's been a great time. Particularly because she's much more uh she's got a lot of heart. She really does. Like, so the reason why she works in our business is because she wants people to be heard and to have a voice. And the reason why I work in our business is because I want people to have freedom and experience love and to be able to express that love that they have uh to other people. But she keeps me grounded when I start to go off on my wild ideas. But ultimately, it's about making sure people are taken care of, and the way that they get to help people, those people are taken care of. So
Amazing. So what is your business? Tell us about your
yeah,
business.
yeah, I'm just leaving you on a cliff here, I'm sure.
I know. I'm like, wow, I'm in, because I mean, what you're both of you having a different but yet so compatible angle and drive is just beautiful. I cannot wait. Tell us
Yeah.
what you
Yeah, so we started, our business, as a marketing consulting agency, because that's kind of what my background has been. I've been a marketing director. I helped build a medical clinic and helped get a few other small businesses into much bigger businesses. I'm talking like probably grossed $18 million for the companies that I worked for before I started my business, which is a really cool thing. But that took wearing lots of hats, right? And so when we started the marketing agency business, I was like, well, I don't want to do this like another marketing agency business, the burn churn, or we're only going to do this like one little sliver that you say you want, but you don't really understand marketing strategy. So it doesn't get you the results. So then you're wasting your money. So that's not how we chose to build our marketing agency business. We worked with a lot of small businesses, and we haven't, most of them have stayed with us for the 3 years that we've been around.
Wow.
Um, and then, we were getting burned out ourselves just because how much we were doing that. So we've shifted lately to taking the process that we use with fulfillment and the process that I use in those agencies. And now we teach other small service based businesses how to implement the same exact process. So we have a course that they can go through and ultimately giving them like a really solid foundation to springboard off of so that they can make the huge difference that they're out to make.
That's incredible. That's just such a huge piece of the puzzle for a lot of people. It's like, I know what I want to do. I know who I want to help. I have all of my story, how I've learned it and earned it, and I know I know how to show up on social media, but I don't know how what else to do. Like,
Yeah.
so that's such a huge thing that you could ignore it and then just kind of spin your wheels for a while. Or you could employ someone like you who will help you figure out how to share that message even wider and create something really amazing.
Yeah. And it's all about like making a system, right? So that like ultimately you're not like stuck in the, okay, well, what do I do now? Well, what do I do now? And oh, I tried that thing and that didn't work. So now I'm going to frantically come over here and try this and hopefully this. And there might still be a little bit of franticness in working with me, but we're going to bring a lot of structures and tools. And even though like it's a training, there is a one on one support. So you've got like a strategist and someone who can teach you the things you don't know how to implement the whole time that we work together. So, really, and I love it. The clients that we've gotten that have started working on that, have been from a few different industries, but it doesn't really matter because ultimately they've had the same challenge, right? They're not sure how to go from where they are right now to making the biggest difference, to being found online, to being trusted online, and ultimately like to carve out like their unique way they get to help the world. So that's what we do, help people get the tools to carve out their space and own it, and it goes a lot along, I think, with what Confidence and Cabaret is about as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like not only, but especially women and femme identifying, we shrink ourselves. And lots of men do as well. But anytime I say to someone who's femme identifying, it's about owning your space, they go, oh yeah. It's just that we become so small. And I don't know why. I mean, I do know why. It's the patriarchy and how we're raised and all of that. I just like I could do a full on rant about that. I'm actually preparing a cabaret performance to call some of that stuff out for later on this week,
Mm.
which is just because I've had enough of that. But those messages, like there is so much of it that you don't realize is programmed in, of what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to move through the world and, what we have permission for. And I'm just calling out like, just no, no, we get to own our space and we get to say our message. And what I love about what you're describing there is not just like, do some marketing stuff. It's like, go in and do the thing and with force and own it. I think that's great.
Yeah, and I think, like someone asked me like, has that taken you Like, has that taken you guts to do that? I'm like, yeah, you better believe it. I mean, I was raised Mormon, or Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for some people to know. Also came out right after I left college. Uh, and that goes very against that belief that I was raised. So it has taken a lot for me to own myself as a person, as a woman, to be a woman who loves hats. I mean, I wear hats every day. And like, it is a process. So like, if I can own myself, then I can own the difference that I can make through my business. And it's not about being anyone besides myself. And I think that's one of the things that has been missing in like corporate and even like the business mindset. That's like, where's the space? Like, you have to change all these things so that you can be successful. And I don't really believe that's actually true. You just need to be you and make the difference that you came here to make. And you'd be surprised what can happen because it's from you, it's from your heart. And I just love it. So it's just, and making sure you have systems in place in a business that actually pull that through, right? Like, not just to know it, but to have a business that helps you be it and stay yourself. That's not something that most people talk about or do.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We have Emanuela watching it with us, and I think it's and her work is all about using your voice and showing up on camera and so on. And actually, between the three of us, it just is just like this perfect circle, right? Because what you're talking about there is really having sustainable tools to be able to grow a really valuable business as yourself without having to change, without having to be different. And I know that if anyone was raised in an organized religion, I wasn't raised as a Latter-day Saint. My brother converted later on, so I
Mm.
was cut and married into a family and involved in that. And I know that there's a lot of programming, like there is for any of us, around what we're supposed to be allowed to do and what we're not supposed to be allowed to do. And it's for me, it's really easy, and it's different for everybody else. Everybody gets to decide, right? As long as you're not hurting anybody else, you get to decide, and that's fine. But what I've found is unpicking some of the things that I didn't even know were programs and beliefs about myself. So when we're talking about, you, you get to show up and be yourself, even knowing who you are and what you want to share, that is such an important thing.
It takes work sometimes because you think that maybe this is you, and then you go down that route and you're like, wait a second, that's not actually who I want to be. I thought so. And oh, there you go, get a relieve, or do some work to release the things that don't actually work for me. And actually, when I'm being that way, it actually costs me something. uh and so, like, taking the time too to like really discover it, you know and some people tell me, they say things like, well, Anna, you help me more in my life, and I'm like, well, I hope not, because I'm here to help you in your business. And that's where, where if it starts to get too in depth to the personal things, I'm like, hey, we need to get you a coach besides just what I'm doing for you, so that we can work hand in hand. So that because
Yeah.
I'm not trained as a coach, not in that. I'm trained as a business consultant, which a lot of people put me as a coach in that sense. But really, it's because I'm here to help you in your business.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Yeah.
people get some parts of their personal life too, which is cool. I love that I get to make that difference. That's what it's all about, right?
Well, so if you, it's they're almost. I mean, they are kind of separate things, but there's just this fluidity between them that you can't change one part without changing another.
Hmm.
So I know my father was a consumer behaviorist, and he was a university
Mm.
professor in marketing, and so I was raised with marketing principles. Like they're a huge part of my programming. Although I'm not a marketing specialist, I understand my consumer behavior more than I really ever needed to. And 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 so so when so I know, my point to saying that was because I know that when you start a business, you're meant to have a niche market. And I've had my own training consultancy and leadership and coaching consultancy for over 25 years. And I did not start with the plan and the niche and the why and the whole thing. Nobody was talking about the why then. It was just a whole thing. And so I kind of found my niche more or less by trial and error. even though we know that, all the big brands, all the Coca-Colas and tobacco companies and all of them, they all understood marketing and how to do all of that. But if you were a small business, you just kind of, got clients and helped them and got recommendations, and that's kind of how that went. But now you're meant to have, like, you're meant to know, this is my client, and this is the kind of car they drive, and this is the day they put their bins out, and all of that, right? And I still can't do that, because I see it as a package deal, right? So we always talk about personal life, work life, and stage life, and they're so connected, because I know that if you do something to change my work life, it affects how I feel in my personal life, because I did something and I was successful at it because you gave me those tools, and I feel good, and that changes how I show up in the world in my personal life. It just does.
Hmm. It does. It really does.
So I know we're supposed to have like a really specific niche, but I love that you're like, yeah, but one flows over to the other, and and then you have a boundary, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, because once sometimes when it crosses it, I'm like, okay, now we're going in a place where I'm not equipped to like actually fully solve your problem. And I think that also has only come by knowing myself, right? Because in the businesses that I worked in, I mean, the reason why I wore 8 hats or 11 hats or, as many hats as I needed to for them to be successful. I mean, we were teeny tiny teams. So I would start to go and put myself in places and conversations that, or doing things that I didn't really know. And I figured it out along the way. And I realized that just because I could figure it out doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to actually produce the best solution or the best result or the support for people. Now, when I say result, I'm not just talking about the bottom line. Sometimes people only think of results as bottom line. But for me, a result is anything that you have a goal around that you get to achieve. And then you like the new way of being, like you were talking about, like how it influences, you're new in your work life, but it changes how you are on the stage. Yeah, that's a result in my mind, right? So so to me it's about, yeah, like, okay, just because I can doesn't mean I should.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, because there's a lot of coaches who kind of get into major therapy issues and they're not a therapist. So
Mhm.
even if you're trained, and there are a lot of coaches, there's a few in the community here where they are trained as therapists, but if you're not engaging them as a therapist, if they're not licensed as your therapist, then they should be passing you over to somebody if they come across, an area that they shouldn't be getting into with you. And
Mhm.
so I love that you have those boundaries where you're like, this is great, but there's a line. And
Yeah.
and actually you can work with both, right? You can have a coach for your own personal stuff, and then you can have still have a marketing coach and have that expertise and so on. There's also different kind of definitions of coaching. So because I've been a coach for so long, I always describe myself as an old school coach, because I genuinely um believe that coaching is an activity that you do where you understand their goals, and you help and where they are now, and you help them move towards those goals, and kind of diminish that gap. But a lot of people will say, well, coaching is like a big program, and you go through the 12 months and you go through all these steps, whether you need to or not, because that's what my programming is. It's fairly generic. And I think, yeah, there's some great foundations in that people need. But if they've come to you and they've already got it, should they really have to go through 6 months of those steps? And so for me, that's training, right? Which I mean, that's where that's where my whole background is in training. And I'm not diminishing training at all, but I
Mm.
think there's a difference in language, right?
Right.
And
100%.
there's a whole difference in language in the whole cabaret world as well. If somebody says, talk, is talking about, some form of way that they express themselves or move through the world, it does not mean the same thing. You and I have a different definition of that, and we live it in a different realness than that. And so I think very often, the language gets confused, and we don't take the time to say, what is your definition of that? If you need coaching, then tell me a little bit about what that means to you. And then am I the right person to work with you?
Yeah.
And that's a really different integrity to saying, oh yeah, I can help you totally. Right. Give me your credit card number and I'll help you. That's a whole different thing.
Right. And to me, it's about like taking the time, asking questions, the right questions, Frankly, I don't believe in like wrong questions because I'm an anthropologist. I mean, I've got the marketing as well in there, but anthropology really taught me how to understand people where they are in their world. I still have my own biases, but through that training, I learned how to put some of it down, or at least like, oh, wait a second, that's my bias. I Let me go re-ask the question, and now that I saw that was my bias, I'm going to put that down and I'm going to focus on like what they actually have to say and listen. And that changes the way that I can say yes or no. And I do have said no to some people, like, no, actually, I don't think I can help you, not in all the ways that you're looking for. And that has taken some guts because I'm like a yes person to my core. I would like to help people as much as I can, and like, yes, 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 let's do it. But I feel like in the last few years, I've really been putting like that people pleasing to rest a little bit, and also relearning like to how much that when I actually do things that compromise me, it is compromising other people as well.
Yeah.
Just because it starts with me and how I'm being. Um, and that takes some guts for me to admit on a live video, but here I
Yeah.
am. It's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, when we started this community, I was really clear that I wanted this to be a space where we don't limit it to, we sort of said it's for women and femme identifying. We don't limit it to that. If that resonates with you and you connect to that, then we're not, no, nobody's here to judge. And so I think that we can get kind of toxic online where we only talk about our wins and we only talk about what's going well and we only talk about what we're grateful for, which I'm a fan of, but not only, and I think we have to be able to get real. Like I started this conversation today because I am freaking out about this cabaret show later this week. I mean, fully
Mhm.
freaking out because it's been so long. And and it leaves us all vulnerable. But I think if we can really share this bit about like, I'm really struggling with this mindset today, or I really don't know what my question is that or what I'm, because if I come to you and you're a marketing expert, I don't necessarily know what I need to know. And what I like about the ease of this conversation is you would be so easy to work with for somebody to go, okay, this is a stupid question, but do you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
isn't that. It isn't that. And I think that you've done the work to recognize, okay, that's my bias. Let's put that aside. That was one of the hardest things that I ever had to learn in my life was one, how judgmental I truly was, and I still am, but I try really hard to find those points and then go, uh-oh, okay, no, that was judgment. I asked that question coming from the wrong place. And that's where you can really get into the richness of what other people are sharing or asking or needing, because you take that time to set your own biases aside. I love this conversation with you.
Yeah, sometimes it gets really weird, I would say, like, because I practice the 10-second rule. I don't think I ever actually make it to the 10 seconds, but when things start to go south or weird in a conversation, I'm like, okay, time to pause. Then then I have to sit in the uncomfortable silence. And then but most of the time it chills me out, and then I can figure out what I need to ask. But it's still sometimes so weird. But I've learned that it's okay. And it's if I own that I need the 10 seconds or the 5 seconds, then that's perfect. And I'll take the time. And I do want it to be easy to work with me, and I want it to be easy to work with other people because, if there's a lot of things that are really hard in life, and getting to where you want to be, yeah, it's going to take something, but it doesn't have to be like self-sacrificing, or it like seem like this impossible journey, when really it's just a matter of like showing up and looking at what there is you need to do. And sometimes if you can't accomplish that, then we look at who do you need to be so you can accomplish what you need to do, and then you can start getting those results. But it really is, it's all part of a process. And I think that that's something I forget, even, right? Like, I'm here for the experience of this, I'm here for the journey of it, I'm not here just for like that end result. You know
Yeah.
so there's that quote that says, stop and smell the roses. And my grandma used to say, yeah, and don't be afraid to pick some and take them with you so you can smell them if you get to a place where it's scary in the dark later on. And that's something that has stuck with me because, like, if we've got the right things with us on our journey, it's all going to be really, it will be okay, better than we can imagine, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it is about the journey. It's so about the journey. And I think, I love what you say, what you're talking about, with just kind of us growing and evolving and having the ups and downs. I think, most of us at some point will have asked a child, or certainly been asked when we were a child, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Mm,
That question pisses me off because I mean, it's fine to have that little dialogue and, what are you interested in? But it if you channel that enough, you kind of get into this, "Oh, that I've got to be a something." First of all, so my daughter always was like, I've got to be a something. No, no, you get to be you. You don't need a title. Like, it doesn't matter what do you want to even do is probably better. But I can remember one of my sons, when he graduated from university, they were all standing there going, I don't know what we do now. Like, what do you know? And I was like, yeah. And my husband died in 2019,
mhm.
uh, so I was like, yeah, I was in the conversation going, yeah, I don't know either. Like, it's like, you're not supposed to have it all figured out because you finished university or because you hit, you got to this age or you did this thing. It's like you get to restart over and over again, and you get to kind of reinvent yourself. And if you think about all of the marketing in all of the great brands, they have reinvented themselves. Even Coca-Cola. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
they keep the font and the whole thing, but they reinvent themselves.
Yeah, and it really is about, like, looking for, like, that next level, and that's why some people are like, "Well, will I ever be done working with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, if you wanna be done, that's great." But also, like, some of the companies that I've worked with, I can think of a carpet cleaner in particular, and it sounds funny that, like, a carpet cleaner, um I mean, I've never met someone who, one, is so passionate about carpet cleaning, not to give like a shameful plug, no shame here around this carpet cleaner, because this gentleman and his wife, he cares so much about carpet cleaning. He'll go and clean and get stuff out of your carpet that no one else has been able to get out for years. Literally, he's told me stories where he's got like these older ladies who are crying because that spot represented something horrible for them and he got it out. And one of the things that I've seen him do over the last few years as we work together is he just keeps looking like what's missing for people to understand the value, because he actually does it because he cares about people. Like, he's like, sure, I care about carpet cleaning, but I care about people having quality and service, and the way that those needs are in his community, those change. So him being willing to like change and evolve and grow with that continues to keep him relevant and a needed service, because like what you're saying, he's willing to let his brand evolve as he evolves, as the needs and as the community evolves. And I mean, I love working with him because at the end of the day, he's just like, I'm just so happy I get to help so many people, Anna. I never thought I'd ever get to help this many people. And I'm like, well, here you are. How many more carpets can you clean today? And he just gets to celebrate it because it's not about the numbers, it's really about the people.
Yeah. And he really understands that marketing principle that it's not the carpets.
No, no, it never
It's what
has
the
been.
thing. It never has been. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Because you could go, "Oh, carpet cleaning. Oh, okay. Not that interesting." But but that stuff is important to us. That's an emotive thing, right? Business is personal,
Yeah.
which is why what you're talking about when you change, their work life and it goes into their personal life, you they ha- we're one person. And as long as we're not faking it, which I did for a long time in my corporate, I had my work persona. It was seamless. I had unlimited energy. And I had this very polished, because I ran conferences. I didn't want to seem like I was uncertain.
Yeah.
But then when you start to live that way, you're just living behind a mask. Like, that's not really you. And there's a person that you've just described that gets to live their joy by helping people. That's what he's doing.
Yeah. And he's just shown up as himself. And it's And to me, it's just like, oh man, like what's possible in the world if we all started to show up more as ourselves and saw that our businesses were just like the vehicle to allow us to be ourselves and allow us to empower and help other people. And what kind of difference is possible? I don't know, but I think it would definitely be a little bit better than how it's been lately. Uh, or like the world I entered in, which is where, uh, you know, I had to wear suits every day. Like I chuckle when you talked about like having that very polished look. Yes, I totally. That was my life in that world, and it was tough because I was always chasing something, and I always was stuck in the world of when will it be enough, and it was really hard for me because I really got to a point where I realized I'm like, okay, well, I can't measure enough. I can't find the measuring stick for enough in reality. So what the heck am I doing playing that game? And that's that's why I wear hats every day in my business because it makes me happy. It seems such a silly thing, but it's
No,
so
it's not.
perfect.
No, it's not because it's how you want to move through the world and express yourself.
Yeah. And it also reminds me like, oh yeah, I'm enough. Here I am and I'm enough. Okay. Let's live that. Okay.
I love that. And I think that opens us up to being able to say, I get to explore more and more about myself because I'm not set in this mold. I'm showing up as myself and I'm learning every day, just like a child going to school. You learn every day. And I think because I've learned so much about myself, I think particularly since I joined the aerial and cabaret
Mhm.
world, because I started kind of going, oh wait, okay, no, I've changed my point of view on those things. I didn't know this world existed, and actually, it allowed me to express who I am that I didn't know.
Yes.
I
I
am
love that.
filthy as fuck on stage. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. And I challenge and question a lot of the patriarchy, and I challenge and question people's judgment of how you show up in the world in every aspect. But uh, I didn't know that I needed to do that until I started exploring myself and then going, okay. And so there's so many things. It's like a well, I guess. It's not just like peering down what's the water level. It's once you start going into it, it's pretty deep.
And giving yourself permission to like come back up to the surface for air and also like to go swim in a different place sometime. And that I think that's probably like the scariest thing about like starting our own business was for me. I was like, what the heck am I doing? Like, and at the time it was I was in a place where like I started a new job like probably 4 or 5 months earlier, and they were having some financial struggles, so they didn't pay me for a month. I was still going and working, and I turned to Caitlin and I said, I have to do something. I have to do something because this is not going to work. And she said, well, why don't you just finally start that side hustle thing where you have clients and that you consult with full time? I was like, okay, I guess I could do that. And she's like, no, Anna, like you want to make a huge difference, don't you? And she's the one who would like really kind of call me to the carpet. And then I had to like dive in and explore. And she started it with me, but she wasn't working in it with me until probably about 6 months later. But then she had to like discover herself, and it was like it takes time, and that's the thing that I think also has been missing so much for so many people. Like we have to have it all figured out right now, like the immediacy of things, like right now. And I'm like, no, it's okay if it takes a while, and it's okay. Like, how long does it take? And the reason why I think I come back to this is because I it's apple season here. It's starting. We're gonna start picking apples here really soon. And I was just out there talking to my dad, and he said, man, like it's always crazy when it gets to this time because you like think it's a really long ways away, but it's not that far away, but it is. Because you only get to pick apples on a tree once a year, so every year there's like a whole season. Now if there's like I need the apples right now mentality around the apples. You could go pick them right now, but they're not ready and they're definitely not going to taste good. But in 10 days from now, they're going to be ready to pick and enjoyable. So just like being in the timing and the process of it, it takes time to grow something that is actually like where you want to be and who you want to be. So giving yourself the permission to have the time is, I see it in the I see it in the apple trees, you know. And actually, most apple trees don't produce fruit that you can eat until they're like 4 years old. Imagine that, 4 years to grow so that you can produce something, huh?
Right. And then people start a podcast or online business and go, well, I've been doing it for 6 months. Where's my 10K? Yeah. Yeah. Because we want it now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. That's a beautiful analogy. A beautiful analogy. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah. I think I'm gonna share more about it just because we don't see it. Most people don't understand that world. And so I'm like, oh, I have an opportunity here where I can share more about how this relates to ourselves. And it's part of our human experience, right?
Yeah, it really is. And after I finish my show, my two shows this week, um, I will be a different person. And I keep saying to myself, like by Friday, I'll be a different person because I'll have a new branch. We're going to be all about trees now, Anna. I love this.
It's
I'll have a new
beautiful.
branch. I'll have a new branch
Yeah.
that I didn't have before, or that, because you usually, you kind of go through one terrifying time, you get over that, and then you kind of progress, and you don't. Most of us don't have to have a first time all over again. And I saw some of the premier cabaret artists perform for the first time a few weeks ago when I was stage managing a show, and they were freaking out. They were just like it was a first time all over again. So we all have to go through that, and we get to have a new branch rather than, oh, we have to go through this horrible feeling. We get to have a new branch is how I'm going to look at it for the rest of this week.
Yeah. It's
Love that.
beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. And I would say, like, when it gets ready to the harvest time, like, that's the time when I see my dad the least every year. But it's always like the buildup, right? Like the anticipation. And it is different every time. And I think that that's the thing. Like, we can just allow the experience, going back to like the experience of it, like, what do I get and be in this time that's just gonna allow me to like be who I want to be the next time. And that's not a way a lot of us look at really uncomfortable experiences. And it's even really hard for me to remind myself that, right? So don't think I'm perfect at it. I definitely am not. It's a practice all the time.
That's why it's called a practice, right? Because we're supposed to
Yeah,
keep practicing. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Right. Okay, so how can people get hold of you? Obviously, they can get hold of you because if you're watching this on the Facebook page or in the Facebook community, then you'd be able to find Anna. But how can people get hold of you?
Yeah, the best place to get a hold of me is they can visit my website, which is called businessinspiredsolutions.co. And I always have to remind people it is .co, not com. Was not real willing to drop $1,000 on a domain. Maybe later.
Yeah.
And then the other way you can get a hold of me is through my Instagram, which is at Anna Empey _.
Okay, so this is right. Business. Wait, no, I've spelled that wrong. I've done something wonky there. Hold on.
Inspired is close.
No, inspire. Oh, okay. Okay. Business. And we should have done this before, but I didn't think of it.
It's perfect.
It's perfectly imperfect. I'm not even freaking out about this. I'm about to go on stage and strip, so this is easy. I mean, everything's easy this week. So I can spell inspired. I can do this. I can fully do this. There. Did I spell it right? I've still spelled it wrong. I've got an extra R in it. What is my
Yep.
problem? Business inspired. I can't. It's because I can't read it. No, was that right? Hold on. Okay. I would like you to go to businessinspiredsolutions.co. Check out. Even if I've spelled that wrong, I have. There's still an extra R in there. It's business inspired solutions. I will put the link in the comments because I'm not retyping this. It's perfectly imperfect how it is. Maybe one day you're going to be inspired solutions. I don't know that. Sorry, Anna. Okay, and then tell me again your Facebook.
Yeah, so my Facebook is just Anna Empey, and then my Instagram is at Anna Empey _ So, yep, and my last name is Empey. Not to be confused with empty. Sometimes I get mail that says that on it, but it's perfect.
Oh,
I just have to laugh.
okay,
Junk
so
mail.
Facebook is Anna MP, and Insta is Anna underscore MP.
So it's Anna Empey _ Yep.
Anna MP. Oh, okay. Oh, you did it.
Yep.
You did like a whole different way.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I like that. I don't know if I'm following you on Insta, but I will be in a minute. Is that right?
Yep, that's perfect.
You get me getting stuff right. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Get me losing the tech.
Rocking it.
I mean, I used to freak out about that stuff though. I used to be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and "Oh, it's and oh, it's not going to be perfect." And then my dog started jumping in podcasts, and technology started failing, and I was like, you know what though? Like this, it's not like a science. This is about reaching and connecting with people, and I really value the conversation that we have had today. I so value it. Get in touch with Anna. Find out about programs. Is there any particular program that we should be asking about or finding out about?
Yeah, so the first one is creating your legacy. If you're really looking for like the whole system and you want to connect that in with your plan, it's called creating your legacy. If you're really just looking for like the planning and the branding and making sure you've got that first piece sorted, we call that building your foundations. So
Right.
those are the two main things. And I would also say, what I'll say to my clients who get stressed about tech things, Heather, is really perfect actions don't produce perfect results. So it's better to take imperfect actions and still get some results.
Yes.
So don't stress. It's really beautiful, and I really appreciate the conversation. And thank you so much for letting me
Thank
be here
you
today
so much.
and
Thank
for
you.
the difference you make. And I love that you really, you're teaching me things about cabaret that I've never learned, and I've always had a respect and a love for the arts and the community. So just thanks for pairing that with our community, so we can see and learn like the lens of what empowers us all to have confidence. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's really that's very kind of you. So I'm going to ask you a question now. If you were doing a cabaret show, what would you be doing? Would you sing? Would you dance? Would you do aerial? What would you do?
Yes, I definitely would sing. I was raised to sing, and I've got a pretty strong singing voice. I love singing, but
Nice.
then also, I mean, I'd probably incorporate my my hip hop dance moves that I learned in college. So that
Okay.
I don't know how that would fit in cabaret, but we would find a way for it to work.
Oh,
So
totally. It's anything, right? A cabaret is just like a small stage. So every comedian started in a cabaret. Most singers, not all of them, but most singers, it started in or maybe started in busking but they all have a story, and a lot of them are through, the Bette Midlers of the world, and they started in cabaret scenes. What prop would you have with you?
what prop would I have with
He
me?
says you can't say microphone because that's too easy for.
Maybe some apples, because
Oh,
it's part of my history, or like a big inflatable rainbow or something, because I love rainbows. Because embracing my identity, that's a big part. So,
absolutely, absolutely. I had there's a friend of mine who is a fabulous performer, mainly burlesque, but dancer certainly. And their partner is a singer and burlesque artist, and they're called Jada Love and Romeo de la Cruz, and they are two of my favorite people in the world. And Romeo did this thing last week, and they pulled this flag out of the back and just pulled it up, and it was this beautiful. It was just,
Mm.
it was such an emotional moment for me because I just thought, that it's clever because it's not just grabbing it and but it was just, it just kind of rose just from their hands, but rose from the back of their costume all the way up and just made this beautiful rainbow. So I love that you would have that of some sort, maybe in lights.
Yeah, maybe lights, maybe no, I don't know. I'd come up with something awesome though, and then I'd probably tell some corny jokes because that's what kept me alive as a child. Dad
Well,
jokes for the win.
humor is so important. Okay, and what would your stage name be?
My stage name? That's a good question. I don't think I've really thought about that. But probably be something like Annie, get your gun, or something off that. Because a lot of people call me Annie or Anne of Green Orchard, or there's all those things. So, something like that. That's a little on the edge of like the feminine and the masculine, because I'm a little tomboy at heart.
Mhm.
So
Also kind of
embracing both of
raises
that.
also kind of raises that whole politics of guns and you could have a lot of fun with that.
Yes, I could open a lot of people's minds. I love it.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Interesting. You would split the audience.
Uh,
Oh, thank you so much, Anna, for joining us today. Get in touch with Anna and find out more. It's free to get in touch, right? And just kind of
yep.
go, okay, tell me about your products, or go on the website, have a look at what's there, send a message. Anna's really friendly, so it's really easy to message.
Yeah, and I also don't believe in pressuring people. So just know, like, I believe in standing for people, but that's very different than pressuring people.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely,
yep.
absolutely.
And I'd
Yes.
love to talk with you if there's things that you need support in, or you want to make a difference and you're not sure how. Yeah, let's talk about it because we you get to make your difference, right? And I love that. So
Oh, I love that too. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me. I am reminding you that it is your body, it is your world, and it is your stage. Take up space and own it. Thank you. Thank you again, Anna.
thank you, Heather. Have a good one.
You too. Bye, everyone.